had decided to create a new career for myself that involved working directly with and for people. And I was thinking about a whole bunch of different activities, buying an organizational development firm, the training business, outplacement business, things like that. And obviously one choice was teaching. And I was thinking about going back to graduate school to get a PhD or a DBA. And I had this opportunity to come to Duke and teach for a semester. And I came down in the spring of '93, and it was the most thrilling thing I'd ever done. So I haven't left. Here I am. I've probably taught 7 or 8 different courses since I've been at Duke. And so they sort of evolve. And as I went through, after 2000, and they started to focus on PPS 146, Leadership Development in Organizations, and PPS 144, Social Entrepreneurship, and then most recently the course on Moral Courage Development. But I've taught courses in public-private leadership, business leadership, social responsibility, and public policy, change-maker leadership, 20-something leadership, markets and management capstone courses. So I've taught a lot of different kinds of courses, but they kind of evolve. The co-curricular activities came out of my commitment to stay engaged in the lives of my students. So my students started looking for summer internships, and I knew them better than most other faculty members and knew what they'd be good at and could place them. And we started projects, and the projects needed work after the semester started. And then my students graduated, they became alumni, and they were stuck with me as alumni. So it all came out of my teaching and my commitment to my students, and vice versa, actually. When I think about what I've been trained to do and what I do, I'm trained to lead organizations. And I basically lead a class as I would lead a new organization if I were promoted to the head of a new division or new department. And there's some operative principles in leadership that I've believed in and practiced over 50 years almost now, which is kind of hard to believe. And so there's a concept of leadership that the leader can make something very good, but only the whole team can make it great. And you apply that to a classroom, only the students can make it a great class. Making a great class is beyond my control. There's an operative principle in leadership that other people have ideas, and you should give people a voice, not only to gain their buy-in, which is a term I don't like, because they have better ideas than you have, and if you listen to people, you'll make better decisions. There's an operative principle in leadership that talks about the importance of feedback and communication, two-way. You're learning how you could be better and giving students feedback and how they could be better. There's an operative principle in leadership about having everybody own a sense of accountability for the success of the group. And so there's just a lot of operative principles in leadership that I apply in my teaching, actually. And then there's another set of principles about management principles, because if things aren't well managed, you can exercise all the leadership in the world and people won't be happy. It's Hertzberg's theory of hygienic leadership, hygienic motivation. And, it's having feedback mechanisms, having the right kind of syllabus, having enough structure so that the class could be efficient as in addition to being effective. And so those two things are both very important. Tips I would give them would be very similar to the tips I would give my students about the course, and that is to be very clear-headed about the social change model. And, so your pedagogical model of active projects, to be clear about why you're doing it, what intervention is going to make a difference, what the incremental outcomes would be, and to manage to that, thinking both in terms of leadership principles and management principles. So there's an analysis side of this that I think is very important, because it's hard work. It's really hard work. Well, I think there's two things. One is that maybe especially Duke students, but I think everybody in life, if they think there's something real, there's some real result, they'll be more engaged, and the literature would reinforce the importance of engagement to performance, and if there's performance to development, So there's no question about that. But the second thing is in the kind of work that I do in social entrepreneurship, but all projects, ideas are a dime a dozen. The great developmental experience is finishing something, to use a football term, to cross the goal line. And by definition, students that aren't in the business of doing something with a real result, they're deprived of that opportunity to have that last developmental experience, and that's the pride and the satisfaction of actually implementing something. Yeah, so Hertzberg talks about I can use incentives and charisma actually to cause movement, but motivation is something from the inside out. You don't motivate people. And so I can create a situation where I can cause movement, but that's not a very good use of, it's not lasting. So ideally, you try to create a situation where people will decide to make this their most important college experience, or they'll decide to make it their most important class, or they'll decide to, and if they make that decision, I'm there to help them. I've got a lot of examples of students where you could take, for example, a high-achieving student that doesn't have strong social values, and a student that has very strong social values but maybe doesn't have a high level of efficacy, and you put them together and they learn a lot from each other. And that certainly would be the case with, for example, youth builds. Have to have for Humanity Youth Build, where you had a couple of high-achieving students and another student who had a very strong social conscience but did not see herself as a quote change agent, and they came out. They all developed in different ways from the experience. Because the idea is, if you think about efficacy, identity, and agency on a team, different students come into that team with different strengths, and they all can develop in at least one of those three areas. I mean, if in some tiny way we can make coming back to the issues of efficacy, agency, and identity, if we can be some part of the acceleration of the development of young people to, be enterprising and act to make a difference in this world and deliver real results, no matter how small, that's kind of good. They do it anyways. It's as you develop, but we're trying to accelerate it.